Hello Fluffies! Welcome to Lolita Mythbusters, where I debunk the common Lolita myth. Today let's look into the myth that you need an A-line petticoat for all the classic A-line dresses and a cupcake petticoat for all the sweet dresses, because if you don't, it will not fill the dress properly and it will look ugly. You have heard that, right? It all came to me when I did this big video where I reviewed 15 different petticoats and I compared them. I will link it there so you can watch it. I tested 15 different petticoats. Some of them were A-line, some of them were cupcake or bell-shaped, and some of them were hybrid. And we even had a few ones that were adjustable, where you can go from A-line to cupcake. The dresses that I used to test my petticoats were mostly sweet dresses, where it's actually a rectangle of fabric that is gathered at the waist, and there's a seam between the skirt part and the bodice. And that should not be confused with skater dresses or skater skirts, which is actually a circle with another circle cut and sewn together to make a dress. This is not how sweet Lolita dresses are made. So in theory, for very sweet dresses that are gathered here and you have this bump here, you would need a petticoat that has the exact same shape to fill it up. Because if you take a petticoat that is too straight, then it would be empty here and look weird. So first of all, let's see how the cupcake petticoats that are tested did with the sweet dresses. We can see very well that all of them fill the dress very well. Obviously, you can see that the poofiest the petticoat is, the more you can see the shape, but they all seem to work very well with the dress, which is obvious because that's the theory. I did not include that in the petticoat video, not to confuse people, because I wanted to go into more details here, but with the preliminary test that I had done while I was still writing the video, we had some doubts about these shapes with Cupcake Kami-sama that researched with me, and she suggested that I try all these petticoats with a very A-line dress. And so I redid all my 15 petticoats on this A-line dress. I picked the L585 OP from Bodyline, and I own it in size 2L. This dress has no seam at the waist. It's only panels that are sewn together, and the shape that gives the Lolita poof is actually the shape of the panels of fabric sewn together, and there are like 3 in the front and 2 in the back, and that's a totally different construction. So in theory, for A-line dresses, if the petticoat is too round at the top, then it will only touch the dress on a very small part, like a tangent to a circle, and so that would not hold the dress correctly, right? So let's first see how the A-line petticoats did with the A-line dress. All those petticoats we can see made a very A-line shape, but the Milanu and the short one from Bodyline are so not poofy that it's really difficult to see the exact shape made. Is it from the dress? Is it from the petticoat? So the more poof the petticoat, the more information we can get on that subject. But now, the very poofy white A-line petticoat from Aurora and Ariel did a very cupcake shape, despite the dress being A-line and the cupcake being A-line. So what's going on there? These other A-line petticoats did something really weird, like half the dress look A-line and half the dress looks cupcake. So what's going on there? I'm not really sure. So now the interesting part. What happens if we put the cupcake petticoats with the A-line dress? So the classical puppets make almost an A-line shape, but it's not very poofy. And the pink for Bodyline and the adjustable petticoat in Cupcake made very cupcake shapes despite the dress being A-line. It looks like the Cupcake petticoat managed to make the A-line dress look very cupcake too. The only one that was able to make a very distinct A-line shape with the A-line dress is the crinoline from AliExpress. I would think that it's because of the top metal hoop that is there and a correct shape, and it's impossible for the dress weight to make it change the shape, and that a normal petticoat can actually adjust. Now let's see how the A-line petticoat reacted with the cupcake dress. The Aurora and Ariel, that is very A-line, did a very cupcake shape. The adjustable crinoline in the A-line shape made A-line with almost all their dresses except the red bodyline skirt. This one looked very cupcake. Why? Maybe because it was thick enough that it held its own shape? I don't know. The Doll Paradise was an A-line shape, but it's very flat, so hard to tell. And the rainbow from Aurora and Ariel and the Wunderwelt one made a very cupcake shape. The AliExpress crinoline made the dress look very A-line, all of them except the bodyline where it just doesn't work. And the Milanu and the bodyline, the short one, they kind of look cupcake, but also it's very flat, so it's hard to tell. The two hybrids also performed like expected. The Mila XT looks very cupcake, but if the poof is low, like in the Daily from Diamond Honey, then again the shape is hard to tell. I do not own this dress anymore, but there was one dress that I owned, Hydrangea in Space OP. It's a sag dress. It means that it had no seam here and it was just like a big oversized t-shirt, and you can make it a little bit tighter with the waist ties, and I was always wearing it with a belt. And this one worked only with one petticoat. 60 centimeter long. With all my other ones it looked so weird. So this theory might not work with all the sack dresses, and we might have to look into that more, but the dresses that I also called baby doll that have a very high waist. Imagine you have less bust than me and you can wear a dress where the waist starts here. You will not put your petticoat here to fill it up, so that's kind of weird. If the waist is very high, you will still put your petticoat at your waist, so then there will be this part here that is empty without a petticoat. So I don't own any of that dresses, so I could not really test my theory with all of that. So if you do and you want to help me figure it out, let me know. Seeing that my Lady Sloth dress is at least 10 centimeters longer than my petticoats, the poof seemed to still look good, and you cannot really tell where is the end of the petticoat when you see the dress with it. However, if you have a hoop skirt, the last hoop can be visible when you walk, so be sure to not have it too short in the dress because it might cut the dress and be very ugly. And of course, if the petticoat is longer than the dress, it will be visible and it's not pretty, both in a hoop skirt and a petticoat. It doesn't seem to be such an issue if the dress is longer than the petticoat, but I would still recommend to get a 45 centimeter petticoat for sweet dresses and shorter dresses, and a 60 centimeter long petticoat for dresses that are more than 60 centimeter long, like for the classic ones. So my final thoughts about this issue. In the end, I tested 50 different combinations of dresses and petticoats. And the only one that didn't work and made the dress look ugly was the A-line crinoline from AliExpress. All the other ones worked and made the dress look either A-line or cupcake, but it worked perfectly and looked okay with the dress. If the petticoat is not poofy enough, you cannot really tell if it's a A-line or a cupcake shape. In my tests, the very poofy petticoats ended up making a very cupcake shape regardless of the initial shape of the dress or the petticoat. If you really want a very good A-line shape for your dress, I recommend getting an A-line hoop skirt or an adjustable hoop skirt. And of course, get a petticoat or a hoop skirt that is the correct length for your skirt, that is usually 5 centimeters, 2 inches shorter than your skirt. So I was so shocked to realize myself that actually this was not that important, the A-line and the cupcake compared to the shape of the dress or the petticoat, and it was a little bit a mix and match. Please let me know. Did you hear that when you started Lolita, or even still as an experienced Lolita? Did you hear that you need to get an A-line or a cupcake shape for the shape of the dresses that you have? Because I think it's very common. And I would also be very interested in knowing how the sack dresses and the baby doll dresses work actually with petticoats, because I don't have that many experience with that. And if you have any other myth that you are not sure that are real, that everybody is telling you, and you cannot do the science research for it, I will do that for you. Let me know. Write in the comment, can you please debunk that myth, and we'll do the research. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, everybody can be kawaii. Bye bye!